Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, today I'm going to start with a welcome to country, unless you would like to do your own. Okay. We at the University of Queensland acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognize their valuable contributions to Australia and global society. Today, we're very happy to have two people from our library here at UQ. One who's only been here for a year, Heather, and one who's been here since UQ was founded. And just kidding. And Kellie. Before coming to UQ, Heather was at Griffith, also working in the library field. Okay. And do you have a particular specialty within the library that you like to focus on?
I've just been supporting faculty sites for the last 10 years, so.
Okay, so supporting the faculty, not the students. That's good. That makes us all very happy. The library does a lot more than rent out books and give you access to online articles. They also help you to publish. They do training. They do technical trainings like with coding or GIS. I know I had a student just yesterday at your QGIS, and she said it was great. So great job. It's a really important resource at the university. And for all of us in the public university sphere, publishing can get really expensive, can even be prohibitive in some cases. And so it's a great thing that we can have people who know how to navigate this to get discounted or free publications here to tell us about it. So thank you and welcome.
Okay, so yes, we'll be talking about open access publishing and what options we have for UQ authors, CBCS authors. So we'll begin with a little background about open access publishing. Everyone is fairly familiar with scholarly publishing, doing some research, writing up a journal, writing up an article, sending it to a journal, coming back with peer review, maybe that goes back and forth a few times, and getting accepted by the journal, out publishing, all the way through to collecting up your metrics and putting that on a grant application or a promotion application. Open access publishing is, so for however long, years and years, we would have researchers publishing in journals, libraries will subscribe to those journals, and that's how the journals will be making money to continue their operations. Not too recently, but definitely over the last 5 or 10 years, increasing conversation around that if research is being publicly funded through grants or through any kind of taxpayer money, it should be open to everyone, to the public. It should be published open access. And that model of publishing is a journal is available pretty much, it coincides with the internet. So it's available online. Anyone with an internet connection can search for that journal and read the full text of those articles. To pay for all of that publishing editorial process, the fees move from the subscription, which a library pays for or an individual pays for, to the authors paying a article charge to publish the article. Ideally, we still have that same peer review process back and forth. We can still rely on that kind of quality assurance of having other experts in the field look at this. And we have also seen with the rise of the open access publishing, with the rise of APCs, predatory publishing, where a dodgy organization puts together a journal and publishes. They usually do publish it in the sense that they put it out into the world, and they collect up those APCs and use them for whatever they want. They don't do that peer review process. So we have an increasing desire to open access publishing, to publish open access and to make information available, make that information more equitable across cohorts, And we have a little offshoot that is much less positive with predatory publishing. We here at the University of Queensland, we are a member of CAUL, the Council of Australasian University Libraries. And as a member of CAUL, CAUL represents us in negotiating read and publish or transformative agreements. And so with those agreements, with our reputable publishers, we are aiming to negotiate an agreement where we have a subscription to a number of journal titles that we're interested in that support our teaching and our research, and we can we have that subscription, and because we have that subscription, our authors can publish in those journals without the APC, or rather the APC has moved back into the subscription model. But those articles are also freely available for anyone outside the university, outside of any university. And so Australia has about, let's say 37 universities, and New Zealand has about 6 or maybe 8. Almost all of them are part of these agreements. Almost all of those universities are part of all of the agreements. So when we talk about them, it is generally speaking, where any researcher you might be working with at another university in Australia is probably got as access as you. I do mention that because in the scheme of scholarly publishing, Australasia is still a very small market. The US has something like 500 universities, and Europe a huge amount. So if we come across something like, why don't we have this? Well, because it's not a financial incentive for the publishers to give that to us. On occasion, we'll have a look at some details. So when we talk about read and publish agreements, they are available to CBCS, they're available to UQ authors, but they are negotiated at a higher level across the whole country, essentially. Read and publish agreements, we have at the moment, we have some that are completely open. All the journal titles that publisher publishes are included in them. We can publish as many articles as we can write, and the whole APC. We then have some that, and this is the majority of them, with the bigger publishers, they have only a selection of their journal titles are included in the agreements, and there are titles that are not included. They are capped agreements, so there is a certain number of articles that can be published over a year. And that capped agreement, when we talk about those numbers, that is for all CAUL authors. So essentially all universities in Australia, all universities in New Zealand, any author from that is eligible for those agreements. So when we say things like, well, there's already 3,000 articles published, that's not just from UQ, that'd be an amazing output. Big thing to remember, always use your UQ email address. That's how we determine if someone's eligible for it. And we have another option for open access publishing, which is Green Open Access, which involves publishing through the traditional subscription journal and then making the full text available via a repository. In our case, UQ eSpace is a repository to use. Many times publishers will allow us to do that without having embargoed. So I think that embargo period is important. UQ does not mandate open access publishing. We support it in general, philosophically, if that is something the university is into, that's what we think is a good way forward. Yes. But it is not mandatory. However, a lot of funding that you'll get through the art funding does it. Definitely a lot of the health funding mandate that you are publishing that research open access. And some of it is mandating you'll publish it open access within like 3 months of an article being published, it should be open access, which can be a bit of a conflict if you have gone the subscription route and put it on a repository. and the publisher is saying can release the full text after a year. It usually is a year, some will be 18 months, some
Some can be even faster. I think we've seen some where it's just 6 months, but it's automatic. But maybe that's because of the length of time it's gone on peer review, so it's already at 6 months.
that's
That dialogue back and forth to improve it.
yes. So another thing to think about with the reading publish agreements with this is that we can get pretty specific with terminology. So we might talk about being accepted, and that starts a clock ticking on whether it will be covered. Some other publishers will talk about the submission date, and that starts the clock ticking. So I think I've got a point that there is a lot of details. Not everything works the same. Not everything is what is consistent across all the different publishers. So it makes it very complex to navigate the system. I mean, Kellie and I spend a good portion of our days looking at it. We have a open access specialist in the library who spends literally all of his time looking at this world, and there is still more to discover and problem solve within it.
Particularly this time of year when the renewal of some of these contracts are coming due and they want to figure out the best deals.
So capped agreements, the caps begin at the start of the year. So if you're publishing kind of the first half of the year, great. If you're publishing later in the year, we have already reached 2 caps, Wiley and Stringer. Yeah, we've got, I think we can say we've reached 2 caps already. So at this point, we're on kind of thin ice with those agreements. A couple of them have been negotiated for multi-years, but at this point, going into 2026, all of the agreements are being renegotiated. There are publishers who do not have RMP agreements, so IEEE, their business model absolutely works for them. They're not interested in this area. They have just started doing some with conferences, so we'll see how that goes. They're not all the same, so if you've gone into detail for one journal and checked it out, that does not necessarily mean it's going to be the same for another journal that you're interested in. As I mentioned, the publishers do not include all of their journal titles within the agreement, and that is something so greedy. It is greedy. These are commercial in functions negotiations. So, Kellie and I at our level do not see this. It's only, I think, the director of call who is in every meeting hearing all of the details and the numbers. I'm going to say that we, as a university, we have certain journals that we know that we want to publish in, we know we want to subscribe to. They're very highly relevant to us, so we can put forward, here's a list of 100 journals. We need these ones. The publishers will come back and be like, oh, we'll include 50 of those, and for this price, and we'll include 70 for this price. And so it's a back and forth of like, well, what's this? Oh, we can give you this. I'm going to say I believe, because obviously I don't know for sure, but from little things I've picked up and reading about, a publisher can come and say, look at this generous agreement. We've included 1,000 journals. And when you look at the titles of those journals, you don't recognize any of them. There are some that are very new, they're incredibly niche, but they're like, this is such a generous agreement that we're offering you, and it has 10 of those really highly relevant journals that you want. So the publishers definitely have the upper hand at this point, I think we can say. And academic journal publishers are, by and large, the biggest ones, Elsevier, Springer Nature, IEEE, they are businesses. They're commercial entities, and they have huge profits. There is a good selection of society publishers, but they're just doing it for the love of it. And we love those guys because they do make things a lot easier, and they are generally either very much cheaper, a couple of $100 for an article processing charge versus a couple of $1,000, or they will publish open access for free and just the society absorbs the cost in however they're set up. So I've used a couple of different terminologies, read and publish and transformative. Transformative, that term comes from journals that were subscription and they're transforming into fully open access. Read and publish is a better term because it includes everything. We need to be mindful of those transformative journals. We also call them hybrid journals because they have a different workflow within submission and publication. Are you eligible for this? They can be treated a little differently. And also we have situations where our journal is, by the end of 2024, it's going to transition to completely open access. And so if we have an article that's been under review and then in February 2025 it's accepted, it's no longer covered by the transformative agreement because that journal has transformed all the way out of it. We have seen a couple of those come up. We have had some success with appealing that, especially when it's the case of like this article has been under review for over 6 months. So really, please just cover it under that. The agreement that it was submitted, that its first and second reviews happened when that agreement was in place. I'm going to say going forward, we probably won't have much success with that, those kind of appeals. So we will be, this is something we've come across in the library, so we're very mindful when we get a query about it, we definitely have a look at that. Confusing? Just contact the library and check in with us if you have any questions. This is the big point that we'll probably come back to a few times. Really, anything to add in?
That some manuscripts can go to submit. They have different rules on whether they will be covered. So you've probably seen that if they exceed a certain number of pages, they might slap on another hidden charge. If it's editorial as opposed to an original research article, again, different kinds of articles might be covered.
Yes, the additional charges, publishers are still charging colour printing fees, despite the fact that everything is born digital at this point. That's something that we can still see in some of their fine print.
I know today we had advice that if any of the schools or institutes or centres had any questions about the agreements that will hopefully be signed in for 2026, to reach out to the University Librarian if there's any concerns. You want to say, can you please give us more clarity about the arrangement with Wiley, for example, if that's what a lot of the centres publications will be with, so that they know that there's interest, that there's concerns, and prioritise certain agreements.
Yeah. So across UQ Library, we with eSpace, because that is capturing all publications, the metadata from all publications across the university, we're able to look at that and see the preferred publishing, preferred journals, get an idea from that. But we definitely do welcome people telling us, advocating for what they'd like, and we try, but it's not a guarantee. All right. So how do we start to know if our journal is covered? We at UQ, not us personally, Kelly maybe, just had a lot of time to work. We have a journal search tool, and this is, I think Lindy's has worked on a little one themselves. I can tell you that it does not. It is unique for UQ. So it is, if you are, the only way I can find it is going to UQ eSpace, logging in, and it appears over on the left-hand side of the screen as kind of an add-on for the repository. Just like
Dashboard. I went to my dashboard.
yes, lovely. And so within this tool, you We have imported the metadata for as many journals as we are able to, so we definitely have every journal that's within our agreements at the moment, as well as bringing in journals from other external sources like Margo, the directory of open access journals.
If people publish from MTPI and that's not covered, but nevertheless, there is information in there to cover those non-covered agreements.
Essentially, any platform that has allowed us to kind of bring their data into our journal search tool, we have brought that in. That does mean like it is formatted quite well, but it doesn't. There may be times when you need to go out of journal search to check on some details because it hasn't integrated as well as it can. So within journal search, we have a record of the journal. We've got the information we need about it, the international standard serial number, and usually journals, depending on how old they are, they might have two, one for the print journal, one for the online journal. The publisher, so we need to know the publisher to then Wiley. Yes, we have a written publish agreement with Wiley, and we've highlighted here, if it is a capped agreement, you'll see the limited amount available, and we don't show what the cap is at the moment within journal search because that is getting updated kind of at least once a week. Call updates those cap statuses. So whenever you check them, they're usually pretty accurate. At this time of year, you do want to check them day by day.
Does that mean that number is how many are left this year, calendar year?
It shows how many have been published and accepted. So if we've got a number of 3,000, you would see something like 2,500, and that is accepted. And you have to do the math to know that how many are left over.
Where's the 3,000 number listed?
It is behind this link.
Both are listed on that.
It comes down to the call page.
I had a student, someone who worked at the lab, and they went through, I said, here's the 100 journals we might publish in. Give me all the information here in a spreadsheet. And that's been really helpful. That, because it was just ecology and conservation journals. I think they might have wrote like an API script that went through and matched the journal name and then took all this information.
Yes, lovely.
So, and then I could share that with CBCS. Instead of having to go and click each one, even navigating to this webpage can take a while.
Yeah.
I wonder if ChatGPT will find all this information. Easily.
It would be able to find it, but when is the cutoff of ChatGPT's training data? A couple of years ago now.
No, but it has amendments. So
Okay.
it is up to date.
Right, okay. What I would say is you're almost always going to need to go back to the call site to check those statuses. One of call's priorities for the upcoming agreements, and I again, my opinion, they're not going to be able to do it, but it's definitely their priority, is to have no caps on the agreements. We are paying, we're paying quite a bit for the subscriptions, so just go ahead and give us unlimited publications. I'm going to say, yeah, that's not going to happen, but it is a priority. It is something that we want, we're pushing for, we're very vocal about wanting that. Until we have that, we do want to just make sure, if we can see like there's 20 remaining, and you're just submitting that review process, you're probably going to miss out on those spots, unfortunately.
But you can also just delay your publication to the next year, which is what we've done. We hit the cap You wait a few weeks and then you save $3,000. It's a strategy too.
So, yes, that is absolutely a strategy, and it's probably, if it is fully open access journal, that's what we'd suggest. We'd also suggest, publishing subscription and using that green open access, embargoing it. But particularly if you don't have that option, the journal is like either publish now or we're not interested. I think the call has seen a big change in publishing patterns. So at the start of the year, a big peak. So definitely authors can be.
The good thing,
Good. And doing what they can.
I've had people online asking for the presentation of the links we shared, also keep sharing this spreadsheet.
Yeah, I definitely will. I have another question, which is the numbers are confusing. It's like 2,800 conservation biology. That's a journal. We're not publishing 2,800 papers in in one journal. We're not getting even close to that. I don't think we're even getting close to that in all of Australia. Who's taking up the spots? I don't think conservation biology publishes 3,000 papers a year.
So
What's going on? Where is it?
it's a while.
yeah, so
Whole
the
suite.
publisher level,
Oh, is that publisher level?
yeah.
But sometimes the journals have different numbers from the same publisher. But that could be because that's the number remaining. Okay, wait, no, that doesn't make sense either. Okay, it's okay, we can talk about this later. I was wondering who's publishing so many papers.
That's data you there.
That was a good joke.
How much do you think going through the embargo way does an impact over reach, over publicity of the articles compared to the open access?
I'd say going the embargo route, the number one thing to consider is funding and whether you have any mandates or requirements for the open access funding. And if you are free to publish whatever makes sense, great. It's still published in the journal and available to anyone who has a subscription to that journal. By and large, the journals in the agreements are indexed by places Web of Science and Scopus, so they're very discoverable. People searching across those kind of databases and like Google Scholar as well, they'll be able to find that article exists. It'll take a couple of extra steps for them to actually read the full text of the article. I think all publishers do allow, and also, so if you're an author and I email you and say, I would like to read your most recent article, you can email me back the full text. You can't put that, on your blog for anyone, but you can give it to me directly. So if someone's interested, they can pursue that way. Because they are published in the journal, the libraries that have subscriptions to those journals will be able to get that full text fairly easily. So I don't think
Still
it'll
do
be
social media campaigns to say it'll be released next month and really hype it up and stuff.
No, but actually more of the how much they impact, how much an embargo does affect your impact, your visibility, your site count compared to open access.
We do know, and this is an average across all disciplines, that if the article is open access, it gets 2.5 times as many citations, something like that.
Very much.
But I don't think that takes into account the difference between like immediate open access and embargoed open access. So as long, if at some point an article becomes open access, it usually will see an increase in the citations.
The embargoed open access isn't open access on the publisher's website, it's open access on eSpace or something like that. So if you Google it, why it's not open access, then you have to find the author's version.
No, it is not open access there, except we do have quite a few publishers and journals within publishers who are now saying anything older than 10 years, yeah, that's open access. Anything older than 5 years, like they're making a decision that they will make that like historical content open, which we're generally in favour of. And I will also say with Google Scholar, Google's not very opaque with how they do things. Google Scholar does, we know, prioritise institutional repositories. So UQ eSpace, Redis, Research Online, Bro, any of those, it does make those a bit more visible. They'll come up in the top 10 or so search results. So in that way, like everyone loves Google Scholar, it's so easy to use. In that way, it's got that link to the embargo or the repository full text version right there, pretty easy.
What happens if someone sign up anonymously, not the other, put up their debate as subscriptions?
So people, you know, of various types. ResearchGate is an online repository that definitely has a lot of full text and copyrighted material. Publishers can issue a takedown notice and say that I own the copyright of this, so take it down. Publishers can issue us, UQ eSpace, a takedown notice, and we will, you know, you can still find the metadata, but not the full text of something. So that's an option. In terms of how actively is it policed, I don't think it is very actively policed. I think I mean, I've definitely found a lot of like copyrighted material on the web. So it's something that a person could do if they went down that road. So, all right, your spreadsheet that you put together. Beautiful. Yes.
I had one more question on the last slide. So if it's open access, no fees payable. It's open access, why would it be embargoed? Like it's open. It says delayed, then it has delayed also. But like it's already open.
Oh, so this journal is a hybrid journal. So it has the open access, like fully open
Oh,
access.
you can choose either one of those.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you would. Both would occur at the same time. And the first one makes the other one redundant. So okay, now I get it. Is there one or the other? Okay.
Yes. So
But
yeah.
for us, because we're UQ, we could only really choose one of those.
You are free to choose either one you want. And like at this time of year, there has been situations where the library has advised publish subscription, do the embargo, because you won't be covered. You the author will be individually responsible for $6,000 of
Gotcha.
APC.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yes, payable by author as long as we haven't reached the cap in this situation. So journal search, it has functionality to search by title. So if you've got the journal that you're interested in, that you know you want to look at, ISSN, as well as the field of research codes and the subjects. So keyword subjects, that is generally coming in from the publisher site. So we're pulling it in from what information they have available. I think we haven't had too many comments, maybe one or two that is like, this says it's a legal journal, but it's not really. That's the information the publisher has made available, so that's how it's been put in. Field of research codes, I think, are generally good to go with.
My biggest whinge is that some journals have got the in front of them and you put it in there, you think, what is that showing up? And then you realize, oh, it's the veterinary journal, something like that. And yeah, you've got to go through extra layers to find it.
I was waxing lyrical about Google Scholar. We do not have Google Scholar money, so this interface might be a bit clunky and not intuitive as we'd like. And yeah, this one you can see we're pulling in a lot of subject and field of research code. So which ones would you like? And then we get through to the list of journals. So we've searched on biology for this one. We have some filters, and again, I would say they're not greatest. They're limited, so we can search, I think, alphabetically, highest quartile and probably lowest quartile. Basically the same thing switched around. Journals per page, it defaults to 10, but you can, I think you can make it 100, and you can export 100 at a time. I think 100 at a time is the max you can export. So if you're something like this, with 43 pages, that might be a little work there. On this page, we've just got that open access and the quartile symbols, and you need to click into one of the journals to get more details about what is actually happening with this.
So is this what you would have used, Matthew, to explore, and then you've added in extra information about the publisher or agreement exists or whatever? Don't know.
I assigned the end goal and the person did it. But this would work. This is great.
Yes, okay, and with those filters, so we've tried to, like, where the information is available, make sure that we've included what kind of embargo period these have. By and large, they are consistent within the publisher, but different publishers will have different rules. So we tried to capture that, and like with this one, you can see we actually have quite a lot that they're published in the journal, and we can also publish them on eSpace at the same time. And yes, again, try to make it clear when those, we have fees that will apply, we have fees that may apply if a cap is breached, or there are no fees at all. So, as I mentioned about the differences across the publishers, across the journals themselves, yeah, it gets a bit, there's a few different things to think about, and if in doubt, just get in contact with the library and we'll try and work it out together. And get in contact with the library here.
So the republish agreements will reflect what we've currently got going, and then that will change obviously in the new year. You've got direct link to journal search tools, so you can think about strategically that if you've got something coming out of your lab and you want to think about a 3-year goal for the best places to publish it, and make that kind of list of the best journals in the field or the highest ranked journals in the field, and then hope that those journals will be covered over that 3-year period. You've got the advice from UQ on OA policies and guidelines. I didn't check on the publishing workflow, but I'm assuming that's externals link.
Yes, so a number of the publishers have provided guidance on how they work through the workflow, and Call has put that up on their web pages. So we don't have them on the UQ web pages, but we do link through to them. And so it's nice because you are able to see screenshots of what it looks like if you're submitting a journal, what it looks like when they say, when you're given the option to publish open access or publish subscription, and what the copyright license may look like as well. So that is through Call.
Because I think the Elsevier's journal finder tool will indicate how long it takes between submission to acceptance, which is handy for HDR. He's got a crunch, you've got to have this all done before confirmation. So that can be useful.
Yes.
Then you've got advice on UQ Space and open. I'm just reading the screen here. UQ Space and open access, and whether you do want to go down the green OA route. Everything that Heather's covered with the article processing charges. From March to November, they do the online workshop that's led by Scott, who is solely working in this scholarly publishing space. He will be informed with all these negotiations as they come through about what will be the 2026 models, and they can start to share that out so that if we have new HDRs or new staff members joining, they'll all be able to attend those workshops or we request that we come back on a regular basis to get this kind of information. And there's a lot of support for the HDR students in this space. You've got a link to, I'm just doing your stuff.
Yes, so Elsevier shows an average time of like submission to first review or average time of review to acceptance. And that is important because it gives you that information. In submitting an article, you will be automatically, we know that you are a UQ author because you will be using your UQ email address, and that is that is basically the only determinant of eligibility. We want people to be using these agreements, so it's pretty easy. For HDRs, if you have submitted an article and you have finished your program, we do have a period of time after you're finished the program that we allow those publications to go through. I think it's 12 months.
I think it's right. It's funny because the vet school had students from like 6 years ago who'd done all their research, the vet school, and they were still getting covered. So there's obviously some exceptions if they can establish that that all the work was done here.
Does it also depend on, it's not just the first author, but the corresponding author or the author?
It is determined by the corresponding author. So if that needs to change, that is usually possible. Yes, so we'll say about a year after a program finished, still be covered. We are not, we're not policing affiliated professors or anyone. It's if they have a UQ email address, yes, get in there. And we we do want the agreements to be used. We want to get our money's worth from the publisher, so we're pretty happy for anyone who is related to UQ to be involved in it.
Quick question on that note with the emails, HDR students, of course, having both a student and a staff email. I figured it's probably worth asking, is one of those preferred over the other for this process?
The staff email will be preferred, but
In this space, they should be in their student.
their student account. I haven't actually heard of any publisher flagging student email addresses as like, oh, is this person eligible? Even if they do, if I'm at Elsevier and I get a student email address attached to an article, they just flag it with call, and then a call within a call workflow, and that usually within about a week, call will have a look at that. They may contact UQ, hey, is this person actually UQ? We say yes, no, I've never heard of them, and they give it back to the publisher. So yeah, a little bit of a workaround, but nothing will be like rejected because the publisher doesn't think, or the publisher thinks they're not really affiliated. It will get flagged and checked by a couple of people.
I've definitely seen UQ Connect listed as a corresponding look. Yeah, okay, you're already nodding.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I will say that there has been a poor vet student this year whose name has been attached to a paper. They did not write this paper. We have asked the publisher to take it down. They are one of the predatory journals. We're not having any success. It's just an abstract. It's not a meat to it or anything, but it's really discouraging that we can't compel them in some way, shape, or form. They're just not interested.
This might not be something that's completely give you a great idea, but has there been a change in the rejection rate at journals because of the change in the funding scheme? Because I mean, it's a business, right? And their business isn't dependent on subscriptions, it's dependent on articles accepted.
I think we can say like journal editors, they want to, they're usually from the area that their journal is, they have that kind of professional integrity if they want this journal to be the high quality research. We have seen, I submitted to a hybrid journal or a journal that is covered oh, you're not quite right for this journal. Can we suggest this other journal? And it might be completely open access and they're paying $3,000 for the APC. And in those situations, it could be perfectly legitimate. You're not right for this journal. You are right for this journal. This is the option. And they're just suggesting it. It's not as if, and yes, we're now sending you there and you have to pay. Is it a little bit cheeky to say, no, you're not right for this thing that there's no money in, but you are absolutely right for this thing that you would be paying $3,000 for. So is there a difference? I mean, we wouldn't necessarily know because again, like the publishers, they don't make all their rejection rates open to us. There is a pattern that has been observed. How widespread that is, I don't think it is too much at the moment.
I haven't been enough. I'm interested in you collaborating with researchers from overseas who are outside of the centre. Do they have more favourable deals? Have you ever struck it where they've had a better deal? So
I've had the opposite. I've worked with researchers in Central America and the price to get through all of this is amazingly prohibitive for certain researchers.
Or just different deals. Cyro has different journals, so if you're collaborating with Cyro, then how would that be the corresponding author? Nature communications being
So there's a question.
I have a question from Tanya Kenyon online. Tanya would like to know, once the embargo period is over, is UQ eSpace the best place to use as a repository for your author version? Is there a difference in findability of your article depending on the repository you use?
So I would say UQ eSpace is a very, very good option. I was a little joke about how old the university was earlier today. The university has been around for 100-something years. The infrastructure of that repository is going to be around into the future. So it's nice and stable to have your journal captured there. There are online things, Zigshare, something else. Those are options. You don't need to be affiliated with any university to use those. You can set up a private account. And we have a lot of people who do non-traditional, like art projects. They might capture, the photography from an exhibition in Zigshare. That is a commercial entity, so you have an agreement with that entity. You might have issues with your data, with your privacy. So I'd say if you can put it in eSpace, it's going to be a very good option because it is stable. We promise that it will be around.
And it's well indexed in Google Scholar, assuming that AI doesn't kill Google Scholar. One hopes that it will stand the test of time. It's a question of
To balance to the extremes of going to very expensive journals and publishing through a library like Nature. I think it was $15,000 like that.
Nature? Yes, I think
in US.
yes, 10 US. So
I'm going through a not Q1 journal, maybe lesser, but open access and how to balance the impact they want to have, the accessibility.
So, I mean, at some point, all of this doesn't matter. Picking a journal should be what is right for the research. I've had somebody Griffith, who was an editor, talk about when you're doing research, it's like you're at a party and you're standing next to some people and you're kind of overhearing them, and then you want to start to be part of the conversation. So I think about it as like, am I part of that conversation or am I part of that conversation? What am I doing fits in with what the journal has been doing. So in that sense, don't worry about the open access or not. I think that's a secondary concern to, does my research fit in this journal? I think there's a lot about what is considered the norm and what is considered desirable within specific fields. So none of this applies to law. Law has their whole own thing that they're doing. They don't care about any of this, particularly art practice. That is, again, completely different thing. History, they would generally be publishing monographs, books. So journals for them are very much less of a thing. So understanding what your discipline is looking for, what your discipline rates highly. Unfortunately, within Australian University, we do like Q1 journals. We say that we're above all that, and that, you know, journal metrics are a blunt tool for assessing impact. We still advertise how many of our researchers are publishing in those Q1 journals. So it's a nuanced balance. So back there.
So on the whole problem of paying so much for education, either via these subscriptions at university level or from the grant money from the researchers, I know that there are some universities in the Netherlands, they have basically stopped paying every year, and they have set up journals on their own, which are, I guess the idea is, instead of paying so much money for other journals, you use a fraction of that money to make your own journals. And they're great, like it's free to publish, everyone can, but nobody does, because they don't have any prestige. But is there any such ideas in the Australian or the UQ ecosystem of sort of just not engaging as much with these journals, which, and they're not predatory as traditional predatory journals are, but they still take money off of science, which could be used for science itself?
There are, like, yes, there is conversation around that. There are a smattering of them. Exactly the same problem. They don't have prestige, they don't have the history. If you are individually thinking about your career, you may not want to do that. I do think that those who are very well established, very accepted as experts in the field, they champion open access, are much more likely to pick those options. That I would say that's a very, like, I'm in favor of it, but it's a very gradual kind of cultural change to how publishing has worked.
This is not a fair question or comment, but you were talking about rankings, right? And of the rankings that we use, most of them, and in particular Nature Index, which we love to point out that we're #1 in Australia for Nature Index, the journals that are part of the Nature Index are generally not things that the university pays for. Those things are like diametrically opposed to each other. Like, we really want you to publish on these things, and we absolutely cannot make them do so. And I'm just curious, like, is there a conversation around that?
Is it Readers does say we could offer, I don't think they look for a more, we could offer you a deal, but it's 10 times.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
not cost effective.
But even on an individual level of paying for the articles, there's nothing, even though, because I was gonna say, like, okay, you get your paper in Nature, then just go to the head of school and be like, I'm sorry, I can't pay for this. Do you want this paper in Nature or not? And head of school is gonna have a reasonable chance of wanting that paper in Nature and maybe paying for it if there's no other mechanism for paying for it. But I mean, that's obviously, you're rolling the dice, but the value of a paper in Nature to even the school with 160 TNR researchers is huge. So I think it's a question of which, there's a very fine tier of like the science Nature level journals, as opposed to the next tier, which they're very happy about, but which they might not pay for because they're getting loads in Nature Communications and things like that. But if you happen to get it in Nature, then I imagine you can probably find somebody at the university that would want to pay for it.
So I do know that, not this university, a much smaller university, did want to get a Nature publication, and they had that 10,000 US set aside. That money was coming out of their marketing and communication budget. It was nothing to do with the library. So yes, universities are.
So there is a conversation to be had. There is a space.
Always the conversation.
If the brand is good enough, if the brand has that much pull.
There's also random ones where we had a student who, without asking us or saying anything, just wrote to Nature Communications indicating that he was a student and he didn't have project money to pay for it, would they give him an exemption? And they did, which shocked me. I was like, why didn't we do this with the last, I don't know how many papers, but so like, I think there are other mechanisms that students need to be aware of as well, where they can just ask if there is project money. They should ask, because if you don't ask, you have zero chance of getting it accepted.
So, yes, in situations where we've like people have appealed, not like being cut out from agreements, it does seem to help if the author is a student and can really emphasize how they're just starting out on their career. A lot of agreements also have allowances for researchers coming from developing countries or countries that are very much underrepresented. If they are affiliated with UQ, that might negate some of that, but it can very much enter into that on a deal.
That's precisely going to that point. And what about going the other way? Say my research team is one part of my research team is in a developing country, which some journals waive their fees because just that if we choose the corresponding author being from that country, like, and how does UQ take it? For instance, for a PhD milestones.
There's no difference for a PhD milestone. It's
You're
you're
corresponding author.
no, zero. Nobody cares. Nobody would love to see if you're the corresponding author. And if you told them you did it because you needed to pay for the thing that's being published, they would absolutely be like, oh yeah, that was a great plan, good thinking. They won't care.
Okay.
I think the situation where UQ would care is if you have like another affiliation in another country and you only listed that affiliation and you are doing research here, we'd want at least dual affiliation. And I think that we ask that UQ is the first affiliation, but again, I don't think anyone's policing that particularly. So do include the dual, but you can pop us down if that helps. Any others? Nothing? No?
Thank you very much.
There is a UQ journal of Indigenous Issues, I think it is, which is the Diamond Open Access, and it's like you're talking about an institutional or university publications. But it's a lot of investment, I suspect, to get it signed up. Sorry, over to you.
We can continue to talk, but just for our official purposes and our recording, students have the other meeting, so let's give it them a round of applause.